Good morning, Tabor. If you would ask me about my favorite topic, I will answer that this is a topic of calling. And of course, a journey. Of course, a journey as a way and a process of following this calling. Your calling, my calling. I have 4 girls, 4 daughters, and you know, my girls love stories like the Chronicles of Narnia and the Lord of the Rings. I hope you saw. I was wondering, why do they love these stories? And I would say because they love to think and dream about their own journey. They love to dream about their own journey. After all, this is a story of us, of all of us, having an unexpected journey and found ourselves doing and saying things unexpected, like this young man. I would confess and share that I grew up in a small and boring industrial city in the Soviet Union. It was USSR, if you remember this. And all my childhood I dreamed of an adventure such as this. And then I found that the most interesting and promising story is the story of my journey with Jesus. And all other stories are just good or not so good illustrations to this one story of my journey with Jesus. So please read C.S. Lewis books or John Ronald Tolkien, and of course read the Bible as original story. Recently, my friend pastor from Seattle, Jason Dorsey, published his book on this topic. And let me refer to this book. Your calling probably won't be glamorous, but it will be epic like a quest. A quest is different than an adventure. A person returns from an adventure, but one does not return from a quest. If he does return, he returns changed forever. I like your song, friends. We have been changed forever. We will never be the same. Like Frodo in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Frodo lived in the Shire. It was his world, very small, very parochial. He did not have the full picture of the darkening realities encroaching, but he accepted his calling as the ring bearer, and he was changed by the quest he went on. Even though he was very small, he was used in a mighty way to deliver Middle-earth from the curse of Sauron. You too, you and me, we too have a small but important part to play in a quest. Do not feel your small part is insignificant. The elf Lord Elrond remarks that it is often seemingly insignificant deeds and people who change the course of history. Such is of the course of deeds that move the wheels of the world. Small hands do them because they must, while the eyes of the great are elsewhere. I like this quotation. So God invited you into a quest that will change you forever, more epic than you could have ever dreamed. Living your life as a name bearer, not as a ring bearer, but as a special name bearer in the all roles that encircle you. Great sacrifices and real costs come with this quest, but it is worth it. With the help of the Holy Spirit, step into your calling boldly, reject passivity, accept the responsibility that encircles you. I would highly recommend to read this book, so you can find it on Amazon, of course. But as I said before, the most exciting, the most promising, the most interesting story and the journey is about my journey with Jesus Christ. So all other stories and books are just illustrations of this one. So let me remind you this message, this invitation from Jesus Christ. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will make you fishers of men. It's the most promising invitation. As I reflect on calling, I find it threefold. That is, 3-in-1 calling. First, it's a calling to commit ourselves to God, be born again, follow Jesus and be like Him. Second, it's a calling to become part of His church and its mission. And third, it's a calling to serve Him with our special gifts and talents to transform the world around us. In reality, these three different callings are simply parts of the same God's calling for us. God not only saves us, but He also invites us to be part of His nation, His people. Not only does He bring us into the church, but He sends us out into the world to witness, serve, shine, and transform this world, to make it a better place to live. I won't say anything new today, but I only want to connect these different pieces together and remind us about their organic unity of three callings, 3-in-1. My life consists of these pieces, so my reflections will be more of a testimony, my personal testimony. But let me start from the end along with some general thoughts. To be honest with you, I used to think more about the last point of the calling, about me personally, my special role, and how I would be saving the world and amazing it with my talents, gifts. But now I think more and more about the importance of the order and the sequence, and how important it is to start from the very beginning of our journey. Without the new life in God and without following Him, we won't be able to contribute to the world. You have nothing to contribute without taking something or borrowing something from above, from the Lord. Without being part of God's people and serving His church, we are homeless and lonely. That's why it's so important to be humble in our attempts to change the world. That's why it's so important to be a part of new God's people and follow His calling without self-will or false heroism. I know that young generations really dream to change the world. Probably you know this young lady, school students from Norway. She became famous by criticizing the United Nations for climate change, I would say uncontrolled climate change. Greta Thunberg feels very confident on the United Nations podium. She tells everyone off and lectures them, especially older generations. She is so brilliant. She is so proud. She knows everything and is not going to study more in Tabor College, and even in Princeton University. But we all know from the history that many attempts to change the world for better only damaged it, destroying the remains of at least some kind of order, and caused chaos. You see, so she's instructing all of us how to stop climate change. Today we risk destroying everything because we don't want to be bound by anything. We don't want to be bound by our roots, our values, our family traditions, or our church or our Bible. We have stopped listening to God. Rather, we spend more time dreaming about ourselves and the desired image of the world. She is not like Frodo, right? Or Bilbo. We have lost sight of the word calling. Is someone really calling us? Is someone really calling us? Do we have to respond to someone? We are so selfish. The selfish generation has learned to function without any help. They don't need God anymore. And now we can take pictures of ourselves, we can talk to ourselves, we entertain ourselves, and we manage ourselves. We don't need a family, we don't need a church, and we don't need a college anymore. We know everything. Anyways, we are on our own. We are our parents, preachers, teachers, and mentors. We are kings, professors, and gods. It is so scary when people try to change the world but are not willing to change themselves. It's so scary when a person wants to be a god or quasi-god, or at least a small god. This is exactly what happens today with us and our world. When capricious children or equally immature adults try to appropriate this world and transform it. When whole nations and generations become victims of propaganda and manipulation, weak-willed puppets and submissive marching crowds. But I want to stop here, to stay within the confines of so-called political correctness. I want to bring my conversation back into the Christian context. What should everything start with? If it is to be done the right way, that is a Christian way, for me at least. So let me start from the very beginning. The first calling is to give our lives to God. Everything starts with personal calling. Your journey starts here, when you meet Christ and when you respond to His invitation. Christ meets us actually, not we do meet Him. He meets us and calls us, follow me. If I miss this calling and don't answer this personal invitation, I miss my chance to live a real life. I won't even find out what it could have been. Moreover, I will never be able to help others, make this world better. I won't be here. Without God and without being obedient to Him, I will just not be here. But when I answer yes to Him, when I answer yes to Jesus, that's when everything begins. That's where my journey begins. Nothing will happen, nothing will begin without the yes to Him. So Jesus invites us to follow Him. What does this invitation mean? What is the essence of this offer? What consequences will our answer to Jesus' invitation have? I thought about those questions back when I was a child, in Soviet time, in Soviet Union, and communist state, atheistic state. For as long as I can remember, I always wondered about the meaning of life, both life in general and my personal life. I talked about it with my neighbors and friends, Christians and communists, atheists. Almost everyone thought it was strange that I was so puzzled with that question at such a young age. And yes, that was a young age. I was 10 years old when I said yes to the first calling from God. I remember how it happened. We were sitting around the bonfire in dark woods, very far from cities and roads, from KGB and police. The trees were groaning from the wind, and the sky was filled with stars, and I thought that there was no better way to live my life than to give it to God and serve Him. Right before then, we were listening to testimonies from my older friends in faith who had suffered and were deprived of many things for Christ. Remember, it was Soviet time, so time of persecution for Christ. And I knew that my decision was going to have major consequences. So I used to live in the Soviet Union, where everyone marched together in columns, singing the same songs, glorifying the communist leaders. And my family lived very poorly. My mother was often ill, and my father was regularly fined for participating in illegal religious activities. I remember when the police came to our apartment for searches and interrogations, they dispersed our prayer meetings and took my father to the police station for a few days. And before, my dad was jailed for almost 5 years for his faith and faithfulness. And my mom was expelled from the university she was attending. Therefore, I could not be part of this society. I was in opposition to this society. And my parents' strong example of faith and the power of prayer helped me find my personal calling and be true to God. The children in persecuted Christian families are often mistreated within their communities and face great challenges because of their faith in Christ. And in some countries, even now, Christian children are specifically targeted for persecution. These children quickly learn the high cost of following Christ. So did I. I read the Bible at a very young age and began to understand my own distinction and advantage more clearly. I soon realized I had a special calling to share knowledge about God in this godless country, to share knowledge about God to people who knew nothing about Him and about Bible. I had the opportunity to be an important witness for God, a storyteller of Bible stories. At school, everyone was admitted to the Young Communist organization. I did not want to be part of their society, not because my parents or my church put pressure on me. No, they gave me the right to choose. When I was rejected by my teachers and students, I saw God moving in my life in a very special way. This was my important personal choice to go upstream and follow Jesus rather than young communists. Even back then, I knew that it was not only about salvation and spiritual life. It was about a totally new life with its various facets, dimensions. It was about radical changes in everything, in every aspect of my life. It was not only about the pleasant advantages of life with Jesus. It was about privileges to suffer for Christ and work together with Him. It was not only about God and His way. It was about me, about us, that we didn't start living before we met God. And it's only now when it all begins, when we meet Christ and respond to His invitation. I have made many mistakes, but I never regretted my first and most important decision to follow Jesus. I can't imagine what my life would be without God. Would it be colorless, boring, senseless, hopeless? I don't even want to think about it. But we have now the second calling. A few years went by before I answered the second calling from God. I became a member of an evangelical church and was an active young minister. I had been active before, but more on my own. Yet after I joined the church, I realized I was a part of it. The first calling was more of an individual one, and the second one connected me to the other believers and made us one God's people. Years later, I was ordained as an evangelist, and I as I mentioned previously, I can't imagine my life without God. In the same way, I can't imagine my life without the church. And also, I can't imagine my life without mission. After all, the church exists in movement as it represents God and His kingdom through preaching and serving people. So that's the ministry scope of my mission, Mission Eurasia. I have been serving alongside an international Christian ministry for almost 17 years, and it fills me with joy that can't be compared to anything else. My ministry now reaches 14 post-Soviet countries and focuses on raising young leaders like you to develop innovative and creative mission initiatives. It's my personal passion to help young people find their place in ministry, find their calling and find their place in ministry, help them discover their gifts, take first steps in reaching others in practical ways, and see the bigger perspective, see the bigger potential and perspective. We call our program for preparing leaders, School Without Walls, which means that we encourage and train young Christians to go beyond their church walls and serve others behind the church walls. Many of our students start churches with the same name, Church Without Walls. Today, calls to follow Christ is costly. It could be costly. In many countries where Mission Eurasia works, one can be imprisoned for sharing a link to an online Bible or inviting guests to talk about God. I'm talking about Central Asian countries or Russia. Other global challenges are the daily overload of urgent matters and the constant distraction of useless things. So we have many temptations and many challenges on our journey. But anyway, we have to answer this question: shall we follow Jesus and view His faithful people or social and cultural mainstream majority? I want to be an agent of change rather than part of silent majority. And we train more agents of change in our School Without Walls. And now the third calling. I must say about the third calling here, which extends what we teach in School Without Walls. Apart from my personal faith and church ministry, I have my professional gift, my university diploma, job experience, public name and status. That means that God calls us not only to believe in heart, go to church and invite everyone to join in, but God calls us to live a fulfilled life in the society and express our faith in public, starting from our workplace or student's bench, your student's audience. Very often, I myself am amazed by my own life. It wasn't so much me who chose the way to go, but it seems I just followed the path with all the twists and turns, ups and downs. Today I want to put it this way: don't think too much about the choice or the freedom of choice. Think more about being faithful to your journey. Think more about being faithful to your journey, about how you started it and how you can go to the end as you trust your Lord Jesus Christ. Here is how it happened in my life. I really wanted to become a theologian, but I didn't have an opportunity to study theology. So I decided to study philosophy, the closest area to theology. I studied history, philosophy, and cultural studies, but I felt that university studies were taking up too much of my time, and that I was failing my church calling and even losing my faith. But God sent me an angel my way who assured me that those callings were inseparable. Those callings are inseparable. God needs your yes to follow Him. God wants you to join church in its mission, and God wants you to reveal your faith, your Christianity in public space. Almost every week, I met with a professor of the seminary who would tell me, I know what you are going through. You think that you need to make a choice to either serve God in church or pursue your career at university, but believe me, they are parts of the same calling. Study well, acquire knowledge and experience, because the time will come to return it all to God and His church and its mission. The time will come when you will be needed. It was very encouraging. I doubted and sinned, rebelled and experimented with my life. I was not satisfied with the church and its conservatism, or with the university and its relativism. Those were hard years for my soul. I loved philosophy more than theology because it justified my personal uncertainty. At the same time, I thought that it was more important to be smart and radical than kind and faithful to God. I enjoyed staring into the abyss. I loved the experience of extreme, borderline state, the existential attitude, or a sense of disorientation, confusion, or dread in the face of apparently meaningless or absurd world. So I live in constant uncertainty, in zero gravity of eternal questions. However, I couldn't live like that, in a state of constant questioning. I had to make up my mind, and the time came when I reaffirmed my decision for God, church, and mission. I realized that it wasn't only my soul that belonged to God, but my mind as well. It wasn't only the church that belonged to God, but university, college as well. So I gave God all of me and found the wholeness I so longed for. My professional education, my doctoral degree, and my position as a professor opened up new opportunities for missions in the education field. 10 years ago, we developed a new mission initiative that we called Mission in Profession. Over the past years, we have led many forums and seminars for young Christian professionals, helping them find their mission calling in their field of professional expertise. Dozens of Christian associations for professionals have emerged in the fields of education, art, business, journalism, and healthcare. And today I am here to say, friends, keep yourselves for the Lord and follow God's calling. Give your hearts to God. Give Him also your mind and all your talents. Serve Him inside and outside the church. Dedicate your poems to Him. Present Him your money, your dreams, your career. Don't divide your life. This is for me and this is for you, God. It's only when we give God everything without reserve, we can see how all pieces of the puzzle come together into one beautiful picture of our journey, and how God's wonderful plan for us and our lives becomes clearer. Coming to the end, I want to go back to the beginning. The church will be boring. The career will be meaningless if we don't answer the first calling. If we don't give ourselves fully to God, or if we don't follow Him obediently. If you have missed this turn, this moment, go back there and start from the very beginning in the right order. Jesus is calling you and me. Jesus is calling us today. Follow me. If you haven't started, today is your chance to begin your real life according to the calling. If you did start but stopped, today is your chance to find further prospects to continue in your path and reach a new level as you follow Christ and honor Him. It's only then that we can appreciate the whole picture of the world and partake in God's wonderful plan, understanding His calling and following Him further and higher. This is a picture from Kiev. It was time of civil unrest, and we were standing between different parties, between army and between people, and we were praying and we were demonstrating our faith. You see some people, with icons and some with Bibles, but it was good sign of Christian public presence. And that's another picture from former museum of Lenin. Lenin was founder of Soviet state, and this picture is from his former museum building. So young Christian professionals, we were sitting together and praying for a brighter future for post-Soviet nations. And let me show you one more last picture. It was very influential man in Soviet time. It was Orthodox priest, but I would say he was evangelical Orthodox priest. And he was murdered by KGB officer in 1990. And he said that Christianity in our culture, in our country, in post-Soviet space is only beginning. I would say that's true about our journey. Our journey, our Christianity is only beginning. He was killed like my relatives in Soviet time. And those KGB officers are still ruling over Russia. But Christianity is only beginning. Your journey starts when you meet Christ and say your yes. And it will never end. It will never end. You were so amazed by your unexpected journey with Jesus. So I encourage you to respond to Him and be faithful in your life, in every aspect in your life. Let me pray for you. God, we are so thankful for this time. And I'm praying now for these young people. God, please help each one of them to follow you and discover their talents and gifts and unique opportunities to serve you and enjoy this unexpected journey, so promising, so interesting, so exciting. We glorify your beautiful name, our Creator, our Teacher, because you are Lord of our life. Jesus, amen.